professional and business person who's really very successful in what he does. So I'm really privileged today to have him for the webinar to learn more about what he does and how you build a business to success. I remember the last time when we had a webinar, part of the request was people wanted to know more about business because a lot of the people who've spoken have been people who've been career people, but it's exciting to have someone who's a businessman, who's run a business and done so successfully. So welcome, Mucai, to the Career Side webinar. And
Thanks,
yeah,
Phyllis.
karibu sana. So maybe tell us about yourself. I know I've spoken generally about you, but who's
Yes.
Mucai and what has your journey been to where you are today?
Okay. Thanks, Phyllis, and thanks for hosting. And the whole platform, I think, is a great idea because we really need to keep talking and sharing our experiences. And I hope to learn as well from some of the questions and people here. I've certainly enjoyed the previous webinars. It's a couple that I've been able to attend. So it was a privilege to be asked to be on the hot side of the mic now and talk a little bit about myself and my journey. So definitely, it's hard to start explaining myself. Kenyan born, obviously, went to school in local schools. Yeah, I think I was told to make sure I say that I went to the Alliance High School, where I did my high school
Uh-huh.
before finishing up my law degree in the UK. I came back home mid 90s and with the idea of actually going to practice law. So I started qualifying as a lawyer, which
Mhm.
I actually did. But that qualification year kind of showed me that really this was not my destiny. I really didn't quite feel like I would survive practicing law. So
Mm.
I ventured out to business, and I'm from a family of business. My dad was a businessman. My mom was also running a business.
Did we lose Mushai? Rosie, please confirm. Is it my network or did we lose Mushai's network?
I think we did. Hi, Phyllis.
Hi, he's back in. Paul, we dropped your network dropped.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know why my app just
Decided to.
collapsed. Let's hope it doesn't happen again. I'll have my phone on standby.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously, I think it didn't like the school I went to. There are
Yeah, I went
detractors
to
here.
Alliance.
There's some detractors here.
Yes.
I wouldn't name them. I think I can see them in the audience. But
Good.
anyway, I think I was saying my family was in business. My parents were in
Okay.
business, and I basically joined the family business.
Okay.
And my career in business has always been around it. First in we sell detergents
Mhm.
from Johnson Diversey. It was Diversey Lever then, and then a cleaning company, Kemsaf Cleaning Services. I kind of got involved in that and managed that. And then, unfortunately for me, just about 2 years after that, when I was still about 26, 27, my dad died. He was kind of the head of the business. And he had, a few years before, invested in Cooper Kenya Limited. That's what the company was then called, the animal health business, with a couple of partners. And so I moved in to work there just as part of the family business. I started my career there in supply chain, actually. So that's what I was. I was just like the supply chain manager, helping with procurement, dealing with manufacturing, and yeah, getting the products going around. And then later became the general manager and became the managing director in 2000 and something. I forget the year. But out
Mhm.
of that, we also now expanded the business to start a real estate line
Mhm.
later on in that process. and started rebranding. So right now, everybody remembers us as Coopers, but our business is now CKL Africa Limited. Is the animal health business. We have a property business, which is Mashara Park and Karibu Inn that you had mentioned. A hotel property we just own at the moment and lease out. And then also Analabs, which is a laboratory service business, and a couple of other investments that we look at. So that's what I've been running since then. But I also somehow, I don't know how I waded into this BMO area, dealing with the business membership organizations to become a good member of KPDA, KAM, KEPSA, and just start working on framing policy and law around business. That became a big interest of mine. I guess also having a legal career did help in those spaces when I was involved in them. So I've spent a lot of time in those areas. Like you mentioned earlier, working and being the chair of KPDA, KEM. I've been on the board of KEPSA, COMESA, EABC. Yeah, just trying to influence policy and what is going on around. Yeah.
Oh no, that's
Oh,
amazing.
I'm also, I should say, I'm also married. I think
Yes,
before, yeah,
Nancy is on the call.
Nancy's
I
on the
think I
call.
saw her. Yes.
And I've got two sons. One has just graduated and the other one in university. Yeah.
Congratulations on that. And Nancy, welcome on board. And thank you for being such a great support for Mucai. But
Thank you.
Karibu, how has the journey been transitioning from studying law to running a family business to growing the
Yeah.
business? What has it been like, and what have you found most rewarding about it?
Okay, yeah. I think, well, now I'm kind of almost getting to middle age and the middle age crisis. I'm kind of going into that stage of like, how has this been? I think when somebody, Phyllis, calls you and says, we want to talk about your career, you're like, oh, you mean my career has already happened? I thought I was still building it. I was still starting. And then you look back, it's many years.
Yeah.
I think and the challenges have changed over time because at the beginning, I started young. So
Yes.
one of my challenges when I started was that I was very young. I was dealing with people who worked with or were my dad's partners. So I was basically the youngest guy in the room always. So kind of learning, trying to, you know how you have, what do they call that? Phobia. Do I fit in? Do I know what I'm saying? Am I saying the right thing? You're trying to learn and grow in that space. So that was definitely the beginning, and trying to understand the spaces. And then you kind of grow, you start saying, okay, this is what we want to do. You get clearer on those visions and driving and changing things. And sometimes you do some things and you see them succeeding. And so you are like, oh, okay, there are a couple of things I can do, and they actually succeed. And you start also learning a little bit more about yourself, what you're good at, what your gifts are good in. You also start to understand people around you. You understand the people who are helpful or people you want to follow, because sometimes they are great people, but you don't necessarily want to follow their example, or you're not very aligned with what they live or how they are. So you start finding your own way. And then now you reach this stage where people start calling you Mzee and asking you give us a story of your career. How did you get there? And you're like, oh, okay. But it's still going on, and there's still a lot of learning because you get new challenges. One of the things that has been challenging for us is being a family business.
Yes.
And our business is actually two families as well, not just one family. So it involves two families. And we've done a lot of work, which I'm grateful for, about how do you set up a family business so that it becomes continuous. We're a second generation business. And I'm sure we'll come to that at some point. But one of my big values is like stewardship, taking care of things. And when my dad was alive, they would just talk about people who did not take care of that the next generation did not take care of what the first generation did. So it's been a very big thing for me. Is like, how do we take care of this and pass it on to the next generation as something better than what we received, that we hand over and we're passing on. We're just part of this chain and moving things forward. Yeah.
And from that angle, from a stewardship family business angle, what would you
Yeah.
say some of your learnings have been? Because as we observe, a lot of businesses don't make it past the second generation or the third
Yeah.
generation. So what are some of the things you're having to do to ensure that
Mm.
this business outlives you?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, let's see whether it even, yeah, outliving us is a big challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the goal. I think there are a couple of things. One is, and they talk about this if you do any family business managing, is that you realize you have to manage two things. You have to manage a business,
Mm-hmm.
and business rules are very different. It's
Mm.
about profitability, it's about competence, it's about yeah, growing the business, it's financial. But you
Mm-hmm.
also have to manage, on the other hand, the family. And the family is all about, it's a lot more about communication. It's about equality. It's about, yeah, openness in what you're conversing there. But the two should not overlap because the rules don't necessarily apply either way. So, you know, the typical one, we didn't have the same challenge in our business is where you try and employ all your relatives in the business because it's our family business.
Mm.
But are they able to do the work? Is there a slot for them for their particular skill set that works in that business? That's different. But when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to, say, sharing dividend, which is about equality, you share the dividend with everybody because everybody's an owner. So you make sure you're
Mm-hmm.
sharing things out there. So it's a lot about the communication and so on, and then keeping the business going well. And keeping a business going is standard, what do you call them? It's standard business procedure. It's what you study in an MBA.
Mm.
It's what you see in good governance for businesses, making sure the culture is right, making sure that you have clear objectives for the business, that yeah, people are performing to what they want to do. Sorry, what you want the business to do, that what you want to the goals of the business that have been set in place. We have a board, for instance. So you have a board of directors. There's good governance going through the business. There are managers who also have autonomy within the appropriate limits to what they do, and they can participate and contribute to the development of the business. It's just good business management on the other side. You can't
Mm-hmm.
um, just because you're a family does not excuse you from running a business well. You have to,
Yeah.
and the business rules apply. Yeah.
They apply either
Keep your
way.
suppliers happy. Yes. Keep your suppliers
Yes.
happy. Keep your customers happy. Are you
Mm-hmm.
delivering value to the market? All those things
Mm-hmm.
come into play. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And I think now maybe 25 years since you got into the business or more, have you seen growth in the business?
Oh, yeah. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the business has grown both in, say, numbers and also complexity, because one of the
Mm-hmm.
things, and I can say now, one of the challenges we are facing today is just how much more complex the world is. When I joined the business, I think we had about 3 emails in the entire company. You know, we still had fax machines, basically.
Yes.
We used to talk to people with fax machines. Now
Mm-hmm.
everybody has an email, a smartphone, a
Yeah.
TikTok account, an X account, and there's so much happening a lot more quicker. The digital age, so to speak. So there's a lot more happening that didn't exist at that time. So everything moved at a little bit slower pace. Now things
Mm-hmm.
are quite fast. You have to react very quickly, and you have to set up for that. Then we've just grown also in terms of the products we've put into the market. We've expanded our product range. That's on the CKL side. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, basically, because I only used to manage CKL at that time when I was working in CKL, now I have a property business, which we are also running, and a laboratory business as well. That's Analabs, which I kind
Mm-hmm.
of oversee. So it's again, learning how to oversee business at a strategic level and just saying, okay, what are the strategic aims, and making sure that there are people working towards driving those strategic goals. So you change the mindset a bit rather than operational,
Yeah.
then rather than checking what time do people come to work, it's like,
Yeah.
what work are we trying to do? Which direction are we trying to set the business?
And has that meant you've had to either mentor people or bring people under you to run the businesses?
Yes. And I think, well, mentoring is also let's say, an interesting space because you have
Mm-hmm.
the formal mentoring, like you
Yeah.
say, and that's becoming a bigger thing now, where we actually say, you are the mentee, I am the mentor, and you come in and we have these conversations and we do all this kind of, there's a very structured way of doing it. But in any business, you have to grow your own people. So that is what we aim to do. So that our key managers, I'm looking at, say, right now, our MD, I don't know if she managed to join the call in the business. She's been in the business 20 years. You know, Catherine,
Yeah.
she's been in the
I know,
business
Catherine.
20
Yeah.
years.
Mm.
Actually, 24. She's just a year younger than me, 24, 23
Okay.
years in the business. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
our managers have been in the business like 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
10 years. So you're working with the same people. And why that is important also for a business is culture, because you have to agree or be a fit for the culture of the business that you have. Now, one of the things when culture, and culture is a huge thing. I think it's
Mm.
they say culture eats strategy for breakfast. So it is the thing that you have to have is culture.
Yeah.
You have to have your own unique culture. And when
Mm-hmm.
you have your own unique culture, you have to know that not everybody is going to fit in your culture.
Mm.
People will not agree with your culture because it's
Mm.
unique. If
Yeah.
everybody had the same, it wouldn't be culture because everybody has
Mm-hmm.
it. So you create your own unique culture, and it's in
Mm-hmm.
that culture that the mentoring is actually happening, because we are saying this is the culture we want you to fit in, this is the
Mm-hmm.
way we want you to behave, the things that we reward around here, and the things that we do around here, that is what is allowed. There's what is written and what is actually done. And in our businesses, in terms of the culture we've tried to create, is one that is honest and
Yeah.
straightforward. One of our key values is keeping our promises. So we like to say,
Mm-hmm.
we just say what we are going to do, and do what we say we are going to do. Just keep our
Mm-hmm.
promises all the time. We are very
Mm-hmm.
big on teamwork,
Mm-hmm.
working together. And that's not just within our staff, but also with our suppliers and our customers. So, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, last week I was with our distributors. Most of our distributors have been with us 15, 20 years. Some of them have been with us 24 years. You've
Mm-hmm.
been working with the same distributors 24 years.
Yeah.
And that's teamwork. We're just saying we are working together on this thing. Our suppliers, again, basically, most of the suppliers I inherited from my dad, we still have them. They're still
Mm.
our suppliers. And you
Mm-hmm.
work together as a team. And what does that mean? Is we give each other leeway and rope here and there. It's not perfect. We don't buy the cheapest thing,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't necessarily go for the most expensive, but we go for the team that is going to be consistent, that is going to be honest with us, and that we know we are working on the same kind of value basis. That's what we are looking for. And when you work in an environment like that, people who come in and work in that environment, it's a mentoring environment. They start to see
Yeah.
how we want to work, how we want to build, and that's what we are trying to grow with them. Um, some of our staff also, we know they're not going to live with us forever, so people do move on. They get to
Mm-hmm.
new jobs, and
Mm-hmm.
they are moving out career-wise. And part of my pride anyway is when I see people who came through our business are able to go and command good positions, work
Mm-hmm.
well in other places as well. Because
Mm.
hopefully we have, in that sense, mentored them. There's a
Entered them.
couple of things we taught them that
Yeah.
we hope they didn't go and waste out there. So when they go out, we usually tell them, please do not embarrass us wherever you're going. Don't
Yeah.
go and say you learned that from us. Yeah,
Oh, no, that's great. I like what
yeah.
you say about the culture and how that's one of the key things that you really try to inculcate within the business. Um, for everyone who's joining, please feel free to drop your questions. I'm going to move into questions in the next 10 minutes, hopefully, where we can have your questions directed at Mucai. So feel free to drop your questions on the chat and we can ask them to Mucai. And if possible, we'll give you an opportunity to switch on your mic
Mm.
and ask the question. Um, as you reflect on the years you've been running the business,
Mm.
what do you think you've done to be able to balance your responsibilities? You're a husband, a father, you sit on numerous boards, you're the group CEO running many businesses. How have you been able
Yeah.
to get all these things going and still live a life that's holistic?
Yeah. Interesting. It's challenging when you look back at how all this happened. But I'd say I have sort of been successful. My wife is still there, so
Mhm.
that can't be a bad sign if she's still around.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there's a lot of planning that goes into all of these things. How do you plan and manage yourselves? And I
Mm-hmm.
still remember one of our predecessors at CAM, that
Mm-hmm.
was Flora. When I started as the vice chair, she was just telling me, don't worry, this job will stretch you. You
Mm-hmm.
actually find you really get stretched.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow your time also stretches. You'll be surprised actually what your capacity to do stuff is if you organize yourself and you can load things. So you actually have a lot of the time we have a lot of capacity which we don't know that we have until we are pushed into doing it. But it definitely means that you start getting more organized, a lot more organized in the things that you do. So, for instance, for me, I've always had a practice of waking up early. So
Yeah.
it's like 5 a.m. I'm up, and usually my first thing is just get through a lot of my emails so that the day is kind of full. Because I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
free because I've
Yeah.
sorted out most of my emails, especially if I had reports or things like that. When you're under pressure, you even do 4:30, 4 a.m. You just have to do that, get those emails out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
So you're organizing yourselves. Other things you do, you start doing things like one of the things, and I saw Sachin was on the call as well. One of the things Sachin advised me is get a driver.
Yeah.
When you're obviously get a driver. And now today, with the magic of mobile phones, I just found with a driver, I do so much work in the car,
Yeah.
in traffic, because you're getting through your emails and you're getting through a lot. So there's a lot of organizing that goes on there. But then besides that, in terms of getting the work done and organizing, is then also family time, is you keep those things, let's say sacred and time-wise, you know. So for me, all through my career and so on, I would make sure I had at least 5 dinners at home in the week. I'd have 4 to 5 dinners at
Mm-hmm.
home with Nancy and the boys, and you're sitting
Mm-hmm.
at the table with them and having dinner together, um, irrespective of what the work is. So that means you miss out on some things. You don't go for some events, you don't do some things, you make your weekend scarce. You know, you're just like, this is weekend. So also like stuff like, I don't do emails on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
keep those days as clear as possible, avoid work. So you have to have your own your little disciplines that you say, I'm going to keep to these so that they become the priority. I also prioritized actually spending time in my kids' events. So I would go to the school. I would turn up for all their speech days. I would be
Mm-hmm.
there for their, what is it, parent teacher event.
Mm-hmm.
And you organize, you just put it in the calendar, make sure you're there for all those things. Whatever else is happening, you're there so that you're present. But then, of course, what happens is the guys grow up and they're gone. Now I have a lot of time. So actually, by the time I became the chair of camp, there was the boys were kind of gone and grown. So it was a lot easier in that time.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, so they grow up after all.
they grew up. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
that's
grew up.
true.
Yeah.
What has been, when you look back over the years, what has been one of the things you think has been the greatest challenge that you had
Mm.
to navigate as a business? And what lesson did you
No.
learn from it that you'd like to share with us?
Okay. Is that besides the day you quit?
Yeah, besides the day I quit, Mucai.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I didn't know you'll pull that one. Yes,
I'll pull
besides
that
the
one.
day I quit on you.
Yes, Phyllis went and quit as the CEO when I was the chairman of CAM. Um, the, well, now after 25 years, there are so many of those days that have been quite
Yeah.
challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they are hard to count, but I have to say a lot of them, and that also, by the way, led me into that BMO space.
Yeah.
Was I think 2007, 208 was quite a challenge when we
Mm-hmm.
had the post-election violence It was quite a challenge for the business, for the society as well, because, we were kind of living in this nice bubble of Kenya, a beautiful country, everything is going well and so on. And then suddenly it just explodes into this conflagration that looks like it could consume all of us. So we were going to have a big challenge. So one of the things we did, and which was a big challenge for us, is that we half our business is Nakuru and West, because that's where the cattle are, that's where farming is done. So it was a real challenge. How are we going to deal with this space? And it really got me into starting to think about what is this country we live in, and how the rules set, how is this society set up, and how can we engage in solving these issues. So one of the things I did get involved in at that time was a group called Citizens Pathway Group. It was very loose and so on, but we were just talking about Kenya and what are some of the solutions we can create. And it's been a real kind of backbone in helping my thinking and ideas all those years. It's, in a sense, my mentoring has also been through that group, to hear ideas about how we can make Kenya a whole country again. And it's been useful. We've put in some papers occasionally in different spaces, and it's been very helpful. So that was a real challenge when we had to go through those transitions. And then the others have also been a lot to do with regulators and government. I remember once we were building our estate, the Waterfront Gardens, and one day the Water Resources Authority comes and blocks and closes the site and says, you guys, you've not done your licenses, you're breaking the rules, blah, blah, and all this. And now you have to spend 2 weeks trying to go through negotiating these things. And I think in terms of the things that you learn from them is one, patience. How to be patient through a lot of crises. And also, yeah, just the ability, is it that calmness? Because you have to be calm in the times of the crisis and try and understand what is going on. Where are people coming from? Because a lot of the times what is in front of you is not exactly what is happening. There's always background. There's always things that have happened that have brought you to where you are. So you have to try and unravel and find out those things. Be curious, ask questions. Why is this bothering you? How can we resolve this? And then also, I think what we've learned in the long run is that there's always a solution. If you spend enough time, if you talk, more often than not, there's a solution that you can find. Sometimes the solution is not as easy as you hoped. There's a little bit of pain here and there, but there's always a solution. You can find your way out. And if you go in anyway with the problem, with the sense that we can find our way around this or through this, you actually find you can solve most. Not all problems are solved, but most problems can be solved.
Can be solved. Oh, okay, that's great.
And finally is talking. I need to say, because one of my great mentors was my chairman, Michael Karanja.
Yes.
He's still our chairman, who was a former MD of EABL. And he's always like, just talk. Talking is free. He's like, always talk, always engage, just hear. Be prepared to talk. So that has always helped me as well. Let's talk with whoever, whatever the situation is. Hear, engage, be ready to talk, and that helps.
No, that's so true. I think dialogue is so important. And as you're saying, you can get to the bottom of anything just by communicating, listening, questioning, thinking critically together to sort of arrive at a solution. So yeah, that's really cool. So we have questions, and today I think Rosie, be ready to unmute some people for me. Agayo, I don't know if you're able to come to the mic. If you are, Rosie is going to unmute you. So if you've posed a question, just be on standby. We'll unmute you to ask your question. Agayo, if you're able to come to the mic. Okay, Agayo, go ahead. I think you've been unmuted.
Thank you very much, Phyllis, and thank you, Chair. A very interesting conversation and presentation. Chairman, we look unto you for leadership. Just a quick one. Family business are really challenging and not very straightforward. would you advise family businesses to have succession plans so that continuity is possibly guaranteed? But I just want to like your intuition about talking and discussing. But our biggest concern is lack of succession plans. And the fear is when the front runners leave, then obviously the coming generation do not sometimes appreciate the doings that you have gone through and the experiences. So would you prescribe succession plans, or would you also appreciate the aspect of outsourcing management of these companies, possibly to experts, to manage on behalf of the family? But once again, thank you for sharing your experiences, and all the best.
Thanks, Agayo. Yes, I think all businesses, again, whether it's a family business or not, succession planning is an important part. And in a family business, it just gets complex because it has an additional layer of the family involved. And that's why the communication is important as well. Because again, succession is not just about, say, eldest. You know, in Africa and in many societies, it's about the eldest son or the eldest daughter that you will become, or even just the sons become the successors. But it's not that. Succession has to be about, especially on the business side, it has to be around capability, capacity, and proven. So some of the things we do in our businesses, we are trying to, our business is still relatively young in terms of our successors, the next generation, is get them experience. First of all, we say you need to get experience outside of the family business so that we know that in a real tough world, you can actually succeed. You know, you're able to hold a job somewhere else, because if you can't, say, work at PricewaterhouseCoopers or at the Shippers Council with Agayo and turn up to work and do the right thing at the right time, you're not going to be able to do it in the family business. So you have to build competencies across the board. Then the challenge comes again in a lot of families, and it is a growing thing now, where your family members may not be interested because they have other interests. They are not necessarily interested in the business. And I think I saw some questions here around the Gen Zs and so on. This is part of the challenge that is coming, that people want their own careers. They are not necessarily tied to theirs. I was the firstborn son in our business, and there was a sense of, you know, when my dad died, there wasn't a question about what I'm going to do next. It's just like, okay, now now it's your turn. But I think our next generation is going to be a little bit different. So if we want them involved again, we have to try and get them involved and so on. I think professional management, especially for bigger business, is not optional. Because again, I remember somebody telling us that God is not so unfair that he gives only business acumen to one family. So genetics is not a proof that you're going to be able to, it's not going to move from one generation to the next necessarily at the same level. So if you want the best or, you know, top management, it means you have to go outside the family. You have to look beyond your family lines, you know, and it's, again, there's an issue around diversity. If I want diversity in my business, I don't want all of them to be, we don't have our board meeting in Kikuyu. We have to have people from outside. So you have to bring diversity again, because that diversity is rich, and diversity does actually add a lot of value to your business. So diversity is a must. You have to bring in other people, and even if you mix them in within the business. But it's an ongoing, I think, Agai, what you're pointing out is an ongoing conversation and challenge for many businesses about what do you do generation-wise. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. We'll move to the next question. Joseph, please go ahead and ask your question, because I can see you on the screen. Then Kate, you'll be next in line.
Okay. I'm assuming it's Joseph Choge, right?
Yes, Joseph.
Yes, thanks, Phyllis, and good evening. Hi, my chairman. I was actually the food and beverage sector chair until a few months ago, and it's a pleasure to see you today. Now, mine is not even questions. I'm just summarizing. It's been a fantastic evening listening to you, Chair. You know, you started with the imposter syndrome, where you were seated with wazés who you're the youngest kid on the block, and you're not sure what you're saying is right. And for the listeners in the room, I've been there myself, being the youngest guy in the room, trying to say points, and you're not even sure whether what you're saying is valid. Yeah. So thank you very much for that. And it's something that probably you can elaborate to the kids who are seated here today, wanting to be CEOs, wanting to be leading organizations, how you overcame that. Because it's a big deal. People don't mention it, but it's a big deal. Yeah. You talked about mentorship, the people you actually chose who to listen to, as opposed to, there are very many people who will give you advice and all that stuff. But the question is, who do you listen to? Yeah. So that was very enlightening. You spoke about mentoring others. That's, once you get to the level, umesema sasa ndevu imekuwa nyeupe. So now it's our time to give back. Yeah. Encouraging more people to. And so I'm in a family business setting as well. First generation. We're in the marketing space. In fact, I'm lucky to have Phyllis in our board. And yeah, it was very interesting to hear about, and it's a question I'll probably ask you, about hiring family members. Yeah? Very tricky situation. We try to avoid as much as possible. I don't know if you have any examples of where it's probably gone wrong, or where it's brought conflict within the business or things like that. What we try to do is try to, as much as possible, avoid it. But sometimes I feel, because people at home think you guys are running a business and you're not employing our people. Yeah, so that's very critical for me to know how to balance that aspect of social aspect vis-a-vis the business aspect. Yeah, you mentioned something about culture. I think, like you said, culture is strategy for breakfast. That's 100%. It's proven worldwide, and I think that's amazing. Talk about your reliable suppliers, how you relate with them. Not necessarily the most cheapest, not the most expensive, but it's about the relationship. So I really liked that. 5 a.m. club. You guys, you can wake up at 5. Me, I can't. I give up.
Just do what works for you. Yeah.
How do you do it? How do you do it, man? Because me, I'd rather stay up late, but 9 in the morning, Z. So if there's a trick on how you do it, I would want to know today. Yeah. That thing of what Sachin Goodka told you, I think I've worked with Sachin before. Getting a driver, that's a fantastic idea. Because the things you do when somebody else is driving, just can't take several hours. And then one thing that I really liked and taken home today is the 4 to 5 dinners at home every week. That's amazing. That's amazing. When family is first, everything else falls in place. So thank you very much. I think I'm the most enriched person tonight.
Okay, thanks, Joseph. Did you leave? I'm going to ask, did you leave Unga then?
I did. We can have coffee on that one. We can have coffee on that one.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I was about to say, this is my frenemies. I didn't know competitors are allowed to come and listen.
to your secrets.
Yes, but they are frenemies. They are friends. Now we are friends. We were also friends. We were always friends with Unga, where you are. We were frenemies, as they call them. So thanks. Yeah, thanks for that contributor, Joseph. Many, many questions. And I think, difficulties there about how you manage, especially extended family. But I did have, I remember when I was running even the cleaning business, where you have family members. And I mean, you've given them a job. It's not even like you're in a cleaning position, like a supervisor somewhere. They were just even a supervisor somewhere. And you're refusing to listen to your managers. It just creates problems, which you find. And then a lot of the time, one of the challenges is that you're, depending on who your staff are and the culture you've created, they are not able to tell you what the problem is, because they can see there's a problem, but nobody is able to. You're the last one to find out what the problem is with the people you are operating with. So those were challenges. But for me, it was very clear. So, and you made it clear. So when I had that problem, it was not, we didn't hesitate. It's like, you go home. There's no discussion. If you're not listening to your manager, you get fired. There's no ifs, buts, or whatever, because this is a corporate structure. It's not our home structure, and you can't come to talk to me at home about whatever is happening. Obviously, there is a lot of pressure now with unemployment. We know unemployment is huge, so we all have relatives. I mean, I remember even my mother-in-law's mom was asking me to, people are giving you distant relatives, not only the ones who are near. So what we do, and I think for me is we kind of made it and people get to know that. For us, it's just simple as that everybody who gets, the only promise I give anybody is an interview. You can get up to an interview. Okay. And what I try to do mostly is to avoid interviews in our business. So like now, Joseph, if I think you mentioned your business in marketing or something. If I have somebody in marketing, I'll send the CV to you. I tell you, keep the CV. If we get a job, give them something. We started off with internships as well. So we'd exchange internships with our friends, with the circle of friends, so that people are not working for you directly.
Yes.
They are working in kind of, you've connected them with someone to be able to get. And so even my friends, when they send me somebody for an internship or something, we'll take them in, because now they are not in their home setting, so to speak, so that it's not it's clear. And then you have to draw the line so pretty hard, because if you take one, you're going to have to take all. So it's like you have to be as hard as possible when you do that. In terms of hard in terms of like this is the barrier we set. These are the hoops you must jump, and we are not doing it. And by the way, it's not just a problem for us. Even in our business, we ended up having to have a policy about family. So when you come for interviews, you have to declare whether you have a family member in the business. And we've also told our people in the business, if your relatives come for an interview, you also need to declare that this is your relative who's coming in for the business, because occasionally after a while you'd discover, oh, these guys are related. We never knew, because you know the way we all have different names. We can give ourselves different names, so you don't get the connection between the people. Phyllis, did I miss another question of his? I focused a bit on the family one.
Let's see. The imposter syndrome. Just a quick one
the
on
imposter syndrome. Oh, yeah. Well, the reality about some of those syndromes, the thing about it is that there is some fact, there is some truth to it, right? That you are the youngest person, you know the least in the room. So there is some truth to it. So one of the things is to accept and acknowledge where you are. That actually, I don't know as much as everybody in here. But then the problem with the imposter syndrome is that it ignores the second bit, is that you are in the room. You have been invited to the room. There's a reason you are in the room, because you have something to contribute. You have something to say. So you can add to the room without having the authority, because you were called in for some reason. The meeting could have happened without you, or people would be happy to have conversations without you. But once you're in there, you actually have something to say. But I think it's just that moderation of saying, I have something to say, but I'm also learning. So I'm also understanding. So I can't come in and say it authoritatively that this is what's going to happen and this is the way I'm going to see. So you've got to understand and respect and learn from everybody else. You've come in with a learning view, but also know that you actually have something to say. That's why you're in the room. So say what your piece that it needs to be said, because sometimes that's what people need to hear. That's what they need to address at a particular point. You've got a perspective that nobody else in the room has, and that's why you've been given the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm moving to the next questions. Thanks, Joseph. We're going to discuss further. You're welcome for the dinner on Saturday. We can break down more details. Okay. Yes. The next question is Kate. Kate, are you able to come to the mic? Then
yes,
we have
I am.
Mark Jeroge. Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Wakiage and Mr. Mucai for the enlightening session. I happen to have gone for dinner at Karibu Inn, and it's quite an interesting, great chill spot, and the portions were quite good. I hope to go back soon. Just two questions. What have you done differently when you compare with the vacancy that fell upon you those many years back. And now, when you have your own children, whom some of them might join the business, what have you done differently to prepare them to take up the family business if this is actually something that is in the plan or has happened? And then secondly, what advice would you give to a young professional who's already employed but beginning a business like I am? And what are the critical things to focus on as you start a business? Because sometimes, either due to lack of experience, you might be more focused on doing many things, say having social media pages, etc., as opposed to perhaps where do you get your capital and where do you invest it most in the business? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Yeah, good questions. I think one of the things, and it's kind of related to the imposter syndrome question, is coming to understand ourselves as unique people. When I started off, there was definitely a lot of trying to replicate or duplicate what my dad was doing and how he did things. And then you realize you are not the same person and you are different. And you have to bring in your bit, which is part of the relay. I see this thing as a relay, and it's almost like the chain of humanity. What you're bringing to the table is your own unique thing. So what I brought in was very different from the way, not very different, but let's say it's different from what my dad did. So it's not trying to do what he did, but just being who I am and bringing myself to the business space. Of course, the other thing that happened for us, and this is a challenge we are getting with our parents, is also that there's a big generational change going on. Sorry, with our children as well. There's generational change, and things are going a little bit different. So we have is it different aspirations and things that we want to do, and I'm trying to think of some of the things which were different. Unfortunately, I didn't work with my dad long enough because he died pretty young. But, some of they might be frivolous, but it was there. My dad used to have this dining room. He had this fantastic, in the office, they had this big exec dining room where they would have lunch. And his big thing was getting his friends and suppliers over, give them a nice long lunch. They would even serve wine. They had their own food. Actually, like they had their executive dining room food, and then the rest of the guys had different food. And one of the things we did when we started, we had a restructuring process. It's like we removed that. So now everybody ate the same food. So all managers, we eat in the same dining room. We removed the executive dining room. We all eat with everybody in one dining room. And that was a beginning. Again, it was just a generational change. They just came from a different generation where hierarchy was different, and ours is changing a little bit. Advice on a family business, and I've had the privilege of helping my wife Nancy set up a business just this year, in the first year. And one of the things I tell people is it's going to be harder than you think. So it is hard to start a new business. Just be prepared for the hard slog. There's quite a lot of complications in things that you're going to have to do. But I think where you are going to is the right point. You have to be very clear about the value you're delivering. What's the core value I'm going to deliver to my customers and to the marketplace, and then work on that value. Because there's always the latest fad, what to do. Let's do TikTok videos. Let's attend this conference. Let's go here. Those things might be useful depending on your business. Maybe that is how your business grows. But ideally, you have to be very, very clear about what you're doing. And then be very, very good at the things that you're doing. You've got to be absolutely excellent at those, so that you're constantly building on your core service factor, or whatever your product is, that it is absolutely excellent, so that your customers keep coming back to it and they know exactly what they're getting, and they're getting it full time. I would also recommend one of my gurus that I'd read is Sunny Bindra. He's got a book out Somebody will remind me the current one. What was it?
Mm.
He's got a book out on strategy. It's a fantastic book to read about the 4 steps to strategy. Is it? Anyway, if somebody remembers, they'll put it on the chat. You'll find the book by Sani Bindra, but it's an excellent one as you're starting your business. Tells you some of the steps you could do in sorting out what you need to do. Yeah.
Up and ahead.
Up and ahead. Yes, that's the book.
Up and ahead. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Highly recommended.
Okay, we'll write it in the chat. Rosie, write for us. Up and Ahead by Sani Bindra. Okay, thanks. Thanks for that. Mark, you could ask your question next, and then we'll move to Sachin Gudka after Mark. Mark Njoroge. Okay, if Mark is not there, we can move to Sachin. But Mark's question was basically the best way to inculcate culture, past experiences from a startup, teaching all the ropes, resignation. Just hold on. I'm trying to get to the question. How best do you plan cultural synergy that will last for a decade, bearing in mind capacities change both internally and externally? So how do you make culture last?
Yeah, so I think the thing about all these things in management is we used to be taught in our MBA, what you measure is what you get. So if you're going to build a culture, you have to make it front and center. So that one, you're talking about it all the time. So like for me, when I'm talking to my staff, all my conversations will have values. I'll talk about what are our values. And then you're repeating it, because values, I look at it like it's a bit like church. You know, church, it's like every Sunday there's a sermon.
The same message.
Hopefully it's a different one, but it's around the same thing. But you have to hear it every Sunday. If you don't hear it every day, it kind of fades away into memory. It's kind of fickle. But I think the other key thing is, especially as a CEO, you need to look at the cultural moments and make decisions according to culture. So, and when you make decisions according to culture, you say, our culture is this, so this is what we have decided we are going to do, because it is our culture to do this. And that reminds people that we are going according to our culture. So, we've had some unfortunate situations where you have to let people go, for instance. And we say, look, you're not helping on teamwork. You're not able to work with your team. And we are letting you go because you are not good at teamwork. And somehow you can get everybody to know that you went because your teamwork skills were not up to scratch. And even when we are doing positive things, for instance, we a year ago or so, when we had difficulties in the economy, we decided we're going to raise wages, but we are raising wages at a different rate. The lower paid people were paid, they got a higher raise than the higher paid people. And we said, this is our culture because we are supporting one another. People who are struggling harder, we are going to give them a bigger leg up than everybody else, because that is our culture. That is what we do. We, for instance, have a lot of social events. We started a welfare scheme for our staff where they contribute themselves, but we contribute to everybody's wedding. So if you come to CKL and you work in CKL or Anna Labs and you get married, you'll get a wedding gift from the staff, and people will turn up for your wedding because we have that family culture. So you have to do things, you have to say things and then do things that emphasize the culture as often as you can. Yeah.
Oh, that's great about reinforcing culture. Sachin, please go ahead if you can come to the mic.
Hi, Phyllis.
Hi,
Chairman.
I promised to lob some easy questions, Shai.
Yes.
The first one is, how many Gen Zs do you employ in your businesses? We did a survey in ours last week, and it was 27%, which was actually quite an eye opener. So that's the first one. The second question, I think, is, there's a saying that you move from shirt sleeves to short sleeves in 3 generations. You're now on the 2nd generation. How do you preserve value and keep the family intact? I think in your 3rd generation. Yeah.
Yes, it's a real challenge. The first one is easy. I thought we had an agreement, Sachin.
No.
One of my mentors, yes. So we have about 21% of our business is Gen Zs. But actually, we were having this conversation last Friday, and one of our challenges is actually our customers. What percentage of our customers? And when you look at the population profile of Kenya, although we are aging fast, a lot of the farmland, most of our customers are farmers, is still owned by the boomers and the Gen X's, and they are still the farmers. And so we are saying, okay, we might be addressing them now, but who is the farmer of the future, and how are we going to address that? So that Gen Z question is really big. I think for most businesses, you really have to think about that segment of the population. How are you going to address them? And it by the way, that marries very well into your next question, actually, about the next generation. In fact, it's even slippers to slippers in 3 generations. It's very difficult in family businesses. And actually, it's like, I think the stats, if I'm not wrong, it's something like 10% generational change. It's only 10% of the survivors that make it. So from 1st generation to 2nd generation, only 10% of the businesses make it through that. 2nd generation to 3rd generation, only 10% again kind of make it there. So it kind of keeps reducing. So it becomes a challenge for the business. And I think it's going to get worse even more challenging with the Gen Zs, because again, the family loyalty, or it's not family loyalty, it's the obligation to family. So for instance, it's like we have a family name. We have to keep up the family name and this kind of thing. Those things don't register for them. They're just kind of, how many followers do I have on Instagram? Those are the guys I'm interested about. So I think it's going to be a challenge how we move on to the next generations, and it's one to wait to see. Like I said, our family is still young. One of the things we do is keep communicating with them, keep engaging them, let them know the opportunities exist, ask them to keep qualifying, because they also need to build their own skills, encourage them to build their own skills as well, so that they are able to come in if the time does come in, but also try and involve them in the business. And then also, it might be sacrilege, but at some stage, you also start thinking about, and I had a very interesting conversation today with another gentleman who has a similar issue, is how do you start thinking about what if they don't? What happens then? So you have to also start thinking about that as an option. What are you going to do? And we haven't really started, but you have to think about it and part of that is, if you build a good business, there is at least a pool of capital that would be available. If you get in investors, people who are managing, you can become minority shareholders. And actually, if you look at the big businesses, like I think Volkswagen is still more or less a family business, and there was another one, but the family is no longer in the business. So is Ford. A lot of these big companies, they are no longer in there. They still get some benefit out of it, but it's kind of professionalized significantly. So that may be the way in the future you have to professionalize the business. It becomes more like a listed company with stakeholders, whether or not you list. Yeah, possibly. We'll have to see.
Okay.
Great. Yeah. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Shawan.
Okay, so we'll move to Margaret, and then Anne Waidera, then we'll take Jane Dungo from the screen. So Margaret, Munio, over to you. If you're there, if not, it was about increasing business visibility, aside from LinkedIn, and how do you maintain longevity after successful visibility of your business? So that was Margaret's question.
Yeah. I think one of the key things, again, is delivering value. Your best salespeople are your customers. and your satisfied customers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the things we are tempted to do, and a lot of business do it, is there's a lot of advertising, and you can be very slick. And all of us have had this experience where we see very slick things. I'm going to deliver this, or these clothes are going to fit you perfectly. You know, the tailors tend to be like that. I'll be deliver it on time. The food is going to taste great. And it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And that is the end of your business. So whatever it is that you're doing, besides visibility, is delivery. If you deliver, you will not have a problem moving forward. So one of the key things people forget in business is that it is actually the delivery of the value that is going to give you long-term success. And then even when you're talking about visibility, one of the best things is when the visibility you're creating is not necessarily yours, but of your customers. So that it's the success of your customers. Like we have a service business like Anna Labs. So we'd like to talk about the success of our customers rather than our success, because their success is what we are working for. Similarly, in CKL, it's the success of the farmer. If he produces more milk, maize, or whatever it is, or eggs, then we say we are successful. And if you keep shining on their success and showing the value you're delivering, that's how you do it. Now, it's very easy to say that. You know, it sounds like an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of work to build a supply chain, a service chain, and a lot of hits and misses. But that's what the work is. The work is to deliver that value consistently. And then it's the other key thing is the consistency of your values, of your delivery. Because if today you are great and next week you're not, you know, people are not really going to come. Or people they start doubting you. So it's the consistency as well. Yeah.
Your delivery, amazing. And Waidera, you can
thank
unmute.
you. Thank you so much, Phyllis. Thank you for inviting us to this series. It's very, very informative. And thank you so much, Mucai, for your splendid presentation. What would you advise someone who is venturing to business from employment on how to succeed in business development, given the mindset of an employee is a bit different from that of an entrepreneur? And also, how do you ensure ethical practices are inculcated in your organization?
Okay, yeah. To also I seem to have been muted, sorry. Two difficult questions there. I think and you're right on the money. You need to know it's different. That when you go from employment to business development, it's going to be a lot different. And I think even just the mental space of knowing it's different is going to help you. So then it's about picking the skills that you need to do that business development. Everything you do in management, in operations, even when you're an employee, all the skills you've got, you picked them up from somewhere. So one is to encourage reading, talking to people, understand the skills that you're going to need to have to be able to do the business development on your own. And then secondly, don't be afraid to try it out. Whatever skills you're doing, try it out. You're going to try your own things. So you will go there, and part of the learning is the failing. It's not the failing, it's the every opportunity not gotten is a learning experience, you know. So it's not a failure. It's like, we tried this, it didn't work. We did this, it worked. So you have to go out there and test. And you're testing both the market and yourself to understand what is it that you do that gets you better off in your sales or your business development, and what is it that you do that is a bit difficult. Ethical practices is a really tough one, because again, your business, especially as your businesses grow and you have more and more complexity in it. So for instance, there was a time, I told you I started off in supply chain. So if I'm the head of supply chain, I can make sure that, you know, nobody is getting commissions to buy from me because I'm there. You're talking to me, so I'm the one controlling these purchases. I know who is delivering everything. But you reach a stage now where I am, as they say, I'm the group CEO, I'm the chairman of the business. I don't know half the suppliers, so I don't even know what the conversation is. But I'm hoping that it is there. So one of the things is, again, it's the repeated conversations about it. We started, and one of the things that has been very useful for us is we started a whistleblower platform. And we've actually, I can think in my mind the last 2-3 years, we've had 2 or 3 managers and supervisors leave the business. We've had them leave the business because somebody, look at them on the whistleblower platform and said there's something fishy about this. And when we looked at it, you could see there was something fishy about it. So having having some way of people looking at it is useful. And the audit is an important process. I think one of the sad things, and for me, it's kind of if I sell myself a bit, what I'm thinking about going forward, it's one of my challenges. How are we going to improve the ethics of our country? Because one of the challenges we also find in our business, you're trying to build an ethical business, but when people step out of the gate, it's like nobody else is trying to build an ethical business. Everybody else is trying to hustle and do the wrong thing, from the Ndudi that is crossing the road in the wrong place, to the matatu, to the policeman, to whoever. It's like the pressures are huge in our environment. So we really, if we are going to build ethical businesses, we have to build an ethical environment, because that environment it just creates too much pressure and too much temptation. It's both sides, because even the people who don't want to participate, they start getting pressured in a lot of problems. So I think it's one of the challenges for us as a society. But we start in our businesses. If we build ethical businesses, it will start becoming ethical outside as well. Somebody has to start somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Jane, please go ahead and ask your question. Then we'll move to G. Kamau after that, and Mona Lisa. Jane Dungo, you can unmute. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you very much. And thank you, Phyllis, for giving us this opportunity. And thank you to Chairman. I have 2 questions. And one of the questions, I wanted to find out, sometimes when a family business starts, you can find it is strictly the people who are born into that family. But with time, other new members come in form of wives or husbands, and they take the role of in-laws. So how do you incorporate the in-laws into the business? Or do you also give them like time to see how this relationship goes before you give them a dive into the business? So that's one question. Then the other question is, even with the family members, we've seen that those who will take an active role and that those who will not have an active role. Yet at the onset of the business, maybe you are all feeling we are born together, we know each other, and you've given each other actually equal shares across. But over time, you realize that those who are not pulling their weight, and only a few are really pulling their weight. So how do you create an equitable structure? Thank you.
Oh, wow. Tough questions. Jane, who comes from a very successful family business, actually. She works in a successful family business.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good question, the first one, which is important. Actually, the two. And I didn't mention earlier, one of the key things you do when we talked about the business side and the family side of the business. And one of the key things you need to recognize is that they are, for instance, in the business, we call them, they are shareholders and they are stakeholders. Okay. So stakeholders are people who, they may not have, say, direct shares in the business, but they have a big interest in the business and how it turns out and what happens in it. And you need to recognize both of them. So, for instance, in the current structure of our business, most of our in-laws would fall into the category of stakeholders because they are not legally shareholders in the business. It's the family members, but we kind of realize them that they have an important say in the business as well, that they are contributing to it and to its well-being, and they have a stake in its well-being and its future, whether it's for their children or, you know, whatever the possibilities are in the future. Sometimes it is even our children. Our children are not yet shareholders, but they have an interest in maybe the future, so they become stakeholders. So you then have to manage them that way. But I think that the stakeholders always have to be kept informed and have to be informed and treasured and valued as stakeholders and told they have an interest and their opinion matters to whatever happens in the business, but also understanding that their role is that of a stakeholder. Then there are the shareholders who are deciding on the business side. Because on the business side, again, we have to make sure that people are there who are, one, pulling their weight according to their job description. We give you a job, you need to do your job. If you're not able to do your job, then, you know, we have a problem, because the business will start to struggle. And what generally, when you professionalize that way, it means that, for instance, if one person is hired as the marketing manager of the business, and, you know, somebody else is the, what do you call it, is a procurement officer, they are not going to be paid the same, because the jobs have what do you call it? Their ranking. We have job grading. So you're paid according to your job grade, and which is also, by the way, an important bit of the business. Once, even if family members come in, there's no family premium to your pay. You're paid like everybody else. And therefore, we're paying you for the value that you're being given. And some of the challenges sometimes do come in where there are certain family members, like I'm the only one in my family fully employed in the business, but I have my brothers and sisters who some are on the board and elsewhere. They benefit from the dividends or whatever comes out of the business, but I'm the only one who gets paid a salary. But I'm paid a salary because if I wasn't there, they would pay somebody else a salary. There would be a manager, and I'm then paid what hopefully is what a manager should be paid for the kind of role that I'm playing. So you need to distinguish that, and that's so that when people who are active get paid, get rewarded for their activity, and then if you don't want to be active or you're less productive, you're then being paid at that level. But then again, one of the key things we forget, and I don't know why, I see it a lot in African families as well, and I don't know why, is we need to respect shareholders as shareholders, because I have shareholders in a business. They may not work there. A lot of the time, the person who's working there was saying, hey, I'm working so hard, and these guys, why am I sharing anything with them? But they're shareholders. Shareholders is an owner of capital, has to get their share of that capital. They get their return on their capital because it's theirs. So we must be also prepared to pay people who are not even active in the business their share, because of the value they are shareholders, just like everybody else. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. G. Kamau, if you can come to the mic.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Grace Kamau. I must say I'm a beneficiary of Mucai's mentorship and leadership. I worked with him for 11 years, and I can attest to a lot of the things that he's saying, and especially with regard to work ethics, the culture that he instilled in us, and even as you work, he always gave you a good challenge and food for thought. He went away from a conversation with him and you wanted to learn more and more. So for me, it's just to express my gratitude for the values, the work ethics he's instilled in me. And yes, they continue being a guide for me in my professional journey. And I continue holding that CKL flag high. Thank you, Mucai, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining in.
Thanks, Grace. And yeah, thanks for just demonstrating that mentorship does pay off.
Yeah.
Mona Lisa, you have many questions. Choose the one you want to ask the most. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I do have a lot of questions, but I'll see you on the side.
Yes.
I think I'll pick 3, if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. The first one is on building a culture that lasts. Is there a specific parameter that can be used to build a business culture that lasts, and adapts as the business grow? And is it ever too late or too risky to shift a company's culture if the one you have is not working? When and how would you do it? What's the procedure and the strategy when you now want to shift the culture? And then what would you say are the keys to scaling a business without losing the essence of what made it successful in the first place?
Wow.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Annalisa wants us to write MBA papers.
Yes.
Those are very tough questions. So I think one of the things is for a lasting culture, which I should mention earlier, we didn't mention, is that the leadership and the team, and it's not just the CEO, I think it's the whole leadership. You have to believe in the culture. Because if you don't believe in it, if we're just doing it because it's the trendiest thing, it sounds nice, we've got a consultant who advised that we should do this, your culture should really be you. You remember the quote somebody says is that trying to be somebody else, you'll never be, you'll always be less than that. I forget the exact quote. But if you want to be you, you'll always be 100% you. So the culture must be so related to you and your leadership, so that there are things that you actually believe in, and then they're not hard to do, because you actually believe in them. You're not trying to be anything new. Or anything that you are not, or anything that you don't believe in. So that always helps you, because you've got to have a culture that is also one of the challenges I've had with the team is also its integrity sometimes, is that an integrity in the sense that the culture that you have in your business must be the culture of who you are outside your business, even with your family, with your friends outside, so that it's the same, it's consistent. Because if you have a culture you put on when you get to the office, then you go outside, you are somebody else, it just becomes very difficult. So I have a culture, and it's even if, there are some businesses whose culture is rough. It's just kind of like you achieve or you're out. And I'm just kind of like, if that's what works for you, fine. But that is the culture that we have, and we are like that throughout life. Whether it succeeds in the long term, it's another issue, but it depends on what you're doing. So you build a culture that you can really, really identify with as your own. And then shifting culture is important. And it's timely at this time. We've got this, as we've seen for the country, going through this Gen Z issues, is how do we, they've kind of come up and raised questions for our society and our generations, our earlier generations, and saying, you guys, we don't like this country that you've left for us. Are you going to be able to shift? So there's a whole series of things that you need to do around that. Like I said, it's an MBA paper, but you have to first acknowledge. I think the first thing is to acknowledge that what are the challenges with your existing cultures? Are they real? Because sometimes it's the denial that stops us changing the culture. So we have to acknowledge there's a problem. And then, like we said, there was a lot about communication, sitting down, talking with people, and starting to say, if this is where we are and we need to go to a new place, what is that place? What is it going to look like? And what do we need to go there? And then we can start talking about that culture, and then you'll be able to build it. And there are very many businesses that have had to change culture, but even our business, because when I joined the business in 99, I joined the business. We were really struggling in the environment because we just, the liberalization had come in, a lot of competitors, and we had a whole change of culture. That we had to go through that at that time, and it was quite difficult. It can be quite traumatic, but it was necessary, and it enabled us to survive. But it was about asking the hard questions, facing the realities that you have, and then sitting down and saying, what is the new future? What does the future require of us? So that we build a culture that fits in with whatever we do. Again, like we said earlier, easier said than done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll move to Hillary. Hillary, please ask your questions. Then we'll come to Elvis Tawana on the screen. He has a question.
Thank you so much. Okay, quite inspirational there. My challenge is you keep saying it's been quite difficult. It's not easy. So, how has been failure been to you, and over the years? And secondly, you are in quite diverse sectors and business rather environments. Not specifically in one value chain, so to speak. So how do you decide what nature of businesses and how do you scale up the businesses?
Okay. Yeah, I think I'll start with the second one. I think one is you look at what are your core competencies, and a lot of the time is the assets. So for us, by the way, some of them were accidental. Like I said, the animal health business I found, so we were there. The property business was because the company had land. We actually got into a stage where we had a balance sheet with a lot of land and we needed to unlock it. So we was like, what is the best way of doing this? That we could either sell the land or we could do some developments and get higher value out of it. So we then said, okay, let's get into this space and do the development because we had the land asset, so we could develop it. And critical to that again is then because you have one part of it you don't have. We had the asset, we didn't have the skills, was then getting in project managers, professionals, and architects to help us go through that process so that we would succeed in it. So you listen to people, you bring in the skills that you don't have so that you are able to get into that business space. Then we've done other things like expanded the product range to include crop products because we are selling to the same people. We look at farmers, then we say, maybe what else can we sell to the farmers and so on. So currently I'm speaking to you from Uganda. And one of the challenges we've actually had is expanding our business beyond Kenya. So we had a big goal, and our business is CKL Africa, trying to expand business in Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda. We've had subsidiaries in all of those countries, and none of them have worked. We've actually had to scale them down significantly or close them at tremendous cost with pretty difficult losses. So one of the things we've been trying to figure out is how do we attack the regional markets? What is the best way to do it? With distributors or with our own businesses? So you kind of have to learn. And I think one of the challenges, and I think we struggled with those there, again, with failure, and I don't know whether it's just an African thing, is you have to call it early enough. So you need to know when things are not working and say they are not working early enough. But usually we are like, no, maybe if we do a little bit more, let's change a little bit. It's very hard for us to let go of our pet projects. So we have to be in a position to acknowledge our failures or when things are not going well and then readjust. Because again, it's like, yeah, that didn't work. And like somebody said, was it Thomas Edison? When he made a light bulb, he said he had 200 of them or something that didn't work. So he said he just found 200 ways not to make a light bulb before he found the one to make it. So you are learning. Take it as a learning opportunity, always. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Elvis, please go ahead and ask your question. We're almost coming to the end. I'm actually over time, but thanks, Mucai, for your patience. Elvis, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm calling from South Africa, and I'm a diplomat and a government official, also interested in some of the things that you're doing. But now my question arises as we know, in many African countries, one of the main political, ethnic, economic problems is the persistent issue of instability and conflict, which might also often exacerbate economic disparities and also development of businesses. We also have the issue of political instability and some of the ethnic tensions that also disrupt from in many African countries. And a critical observation in this context is the decline in generational business takeovers. Traditionally, many successful African businesses were passed down through generations, and this fostered a long-term growth and stability. But however, in recent times, this practice has just become less common. And factors I think that are mainly contributing to this shift include maybe this political instability, economic challenges, and also some government policies like in Uganda, there we have those high corporate tax rates and all those things. Now, my question arises as to, given the complexities of these political instability, ethnic conflicts, and other economic problems in Africa, what strategies can we implement to ensure a successful transition of family-owned business across generations? And how can emerging entrepreneurs and established businesses adapt to these challenges while fostering a culture of sustainable growth and resilience? I thank you.
Wow.
Thanks, Elvis.
Yeah, deep
You're
questions. I think, and this is, I'll go back, this is one of the things that got me involved in the BMOs, like the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and KEPSA, and so on. I think businesses work within a society. And even today, we have a whole corporate social responsibility, ESG policies, etc., that we work with a social license within a context that we must work with. And I think businesses must take on their responsibility of the society that we're living in and try to make it better. And that's what some of these, when we come together in associations, we start to try and influence policy and law that is going to make our societies better. And we need to build these businesses. Like today in Kenya, say, we just had this protest of the Gen Zs. One of the big issues is that there are no jobs. The level of jobs we're creating is below the population that's coming through. And that those jobs are not going to be created by government. They're going to be created by businesses. So we must create an environment that grows those businesses and allows also intergenerational businesses, because one of the challenges is if a business is built one generation and then falls again, we have to start again. We are kind of going backwards rather than building on top of the foundations. So we have an obligation as business people who are here, career people who are here, that you're working not just for your own pocket and your families, but you're working for the society. How are we going to create a society that is going to be stable and sustainable? Part of that is generating wealth. Part of that is generating institutions, just like we have with things like KEPSA, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, I see the Bankers Association, etc., that are going to be able to create stability in the country. Like Kenya, one of the benefits we actually have is the size of these bodies. We have a lot of non-state actors that actually create some sort of stability. There's another a balancing to what the politicians and everybody else can do. And those we need to strengthen and keep them going, because they keep society stable. And then we will be able to have a platform from which we can grow. So yes, businesses must grow on their own, but they can't ignore the society around them. And I'm also now, even as I was in CAM, a big champion of ESG, which means we must participate in our societies. We can't assume that the government is going to come up with the right laws, or that our community around us, our neighbors like us just because we sit there. We need to engage with them all the time and continue doing that. So the task is big for us, building, and for Africa especially, I think is a burden on my heart. It's like we have the capacity. I look at the people in this meeting, intelligent, sharp, driven people. We can make a society that is going to be good for all of us and that's going to be respected and revolutionary. We can change Africa.
That's so true. Gekara Nyakamba, if you can come to the mic, we'll give you a second to just pose your question. And we are drawing to the end. Mucai, there are many people appreciating you in the chat. Wamboi Mbarire is there. Thanking you for your comments. Marie Gesare, and many others. So yeah, thanks. Gekara, if you're able to ask your question.
Thank you for the very nice presentation. I wish I ran this 20 years ago when I was working. I only wanted to know, what do you think your father did differently from other many African fathers whose businesses have fallen down? When you go to Australia, you have only one or two, which are still existing. But the Indians ones are exploding. What do you think your father did differently from the many bigger businesses which were existing in the 80s, 90s? No more.
Yes. All right. I think there were two things that come straight to mind, which is a benefit. So my dad, like unlike many business people of their generation, he started out working in a business. So he worked for a company called Mackenzie Dalgetty before he ventured out to business. And his partner, Michael Karanja, who I mentioned earlier, was 33 years at East African Breweries and Kenya Breweries, where he ended up as the MD. So what they did is when we started the business started on a very corporate standing. You start with a board, with managers, people are being paid salaries. You don't come and take money from the till because there's money to go and buy bogas and so on. So they started on a very good footing because of the experience they had and learned through that. So that was one of the things that even when I got into the business, we didn't have to, there was a board. There was already a board, there were board members, there was an MD, a CFO, all those things were already in place. So that was something that had professionalized from the beginning. That was one of the critical things. But I think the other thing was that my dad involved us and he was very sociable with us. So we spent many, many hours with my dad socially and also sometimes on business, just talking about business. So he spent a lot of time just throwing loose words here and there that made me, they were informative. They were teaching us. I always tell guys this story. One, which was just accidental. I would do things like drive him sometimes.
Yes.
So one time he had his friends with him and they had come from Nakuru. I remember almost the junction where we were somewhere in Apaila. I'm taking them for lunch. And then they just start talking among themselves about their friend who had died and what the son has done to his business. And they're like, wow, that guy must be turning in his grave. If he knew what his kids are doing to his business, it's such a disaster. And that thing stuck in my mind, to this day, so that it became for me like, I will not do that.
Yeah.
If this thing is left to me, I am not going to do that. So there was a sense of informal mentoring by kind of walking around the guys carrying their bags, following them, and being able to sit with them when he's talking with other wazes as well. So that was something that I really valued, as well as our own family time. Because one of the other things we don't talk about is also build the family, even from when they are young. When I was talking about having dinners with my family, we meet with my brothers and sisters as well, occasionally, regularly, let's say, and with my nephews and nieces. You have to create that whole family thing. It doesn't happen magically. You have to be deliberate about it. Have Christmas lunches together, celebrate birthdays, this kind of thing, so that you build those relationships. They don't happen magically. And those relationships will carry you way more than your business acumen or anything like that. It's going to be your ability to talk to each other and solve problems, like I said earlier, together.
Thanks so much. Anthony Mwangi, my predecessor at CAM, says, thank you, Chairman Emeritus, for sharing your extensive experience. And he's learned a lot about having dinners with family. So in his new station, he'll make sure he does that also.
He does that.
But yeah, thanks so much, Mucai, and everyone for staying through to the very end. This was so enlightening. And for us at Career Side, that's what we're really about, just these conversations, because as we said, mentorship is both formal and informal. From these conversations, from the conversations you have at your dinner table, mentorship is happening all the time, but just being deliberate and conscious and knowing that we are leaving a mark for the generations after us is so critical. And as you said, Mucai, we can change the world, we can change Africa. And that's really what this movement is about. How do we mentor each other? How do we continue to pass this baton to new generations, to other people who will come after us? So having these conversations, I think, is great. And just to mention, on Saturday, we'll be having our quarterly dinner on the 7th of September. And during the dinner, Grace will speak more about the dinner, but we are partnering with the Global Mentorship Institute. We'll be doing a 12-week free mentorship program for members of the community. And those are people in their last 2 years of university. And if you've graduated but not gotten your first job, as long as you're below 35, you can benefit from a 12-week free mentorship program. And then we'll be linking up with different organizations for placements and career linkages. So yeah, please join us for the dinner. Grace will speak more about it. I think the poster is there, and we'll also share the community link. But thank you so much, Mucai, for sharing. I think it's been really amazing. Yeah, please, thank you so much. And everyone who joined. Yeah, thank you so much. We'll keep these conversations going every month, and we welcome you to join us. And yeah, Abiagina says amazing nuggets. He's joining from Rwanda. Thanks, Abi. And yeah, asante sana Mucai. Over to you, Grace. Grace is the CEO at Career Site. You can just give the parting shot as we wind up.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mucai, for the wonderful session we've had. I'm sure it's been so useful either to people in business, those looking to enter business, the students who are looking to enter into business after they've completed their studies. So this has been very, very wonderful. I'd like to thank you for your time, even as you've joined us from Uganda. And if you're going to be around over the weekend, I hope you'll be able to join us for the Career Site, our Career Dialogues dinner. Thank you, Phyllis, again for hosting today's webinar. It's been wonderful, and we look forward to many more. Last time, I think we asked for more suggestions, so keep the suggestions coming on who you'd like us to host on our webinars. I'd also like to thank the Career Site team who have been behind all of this. I think we have Rushilda, we have Kesari here. Thank you very much for making this possible and for the great work you're doing at Career Site. So as Phyllis mentioned, this Saturday, we shall be having our Career Dialogues dinner, which most of you have been really waiting for. It's going to be at Gem Suits, Riverside. We will be starting at 7, dinner will be served. So arrival is from 6. Actually, at 6:45 we shall be starting. Dinner will be served at 7, and I'm very sure we're going to have a good time. Our previous webinar speakers will also be available, and some of you have for you to be able to interact. And let's come and engage in great conversations. As Phyllis mentioned also, we do have our GMI Career Site Mentorship Program. Please go onto our website, which is Career Site, CAREER, site SIGHT, and you shall be able to register onto our community. And once you're a community member, you can be able to register for the program. So for you to be able to register for the program, you must be able to be a member of the Career Site community. And this is not only for the people who'd like to join the program. Generally, I invite all of you to be members of the community so that you may be able to take part of our programs. During the Career Dialogues, we'll also be able to let you know of the programs that we're going to have towards the end of the year. And we hope to have a good end of the year together. So thank you to everyone who's joined us today. And we hope to see you all on Saturday during the Career Dialogues dinner. And I hope that you all have a lovely evening. Thank you. Thank you, Phyllis. Thank you, Mucai.
Thank you, everyone. Bye,
Thank you very much.
Mucai.
Thank
Enjoy
you,
Uganda. See
Bye.
you on Saturday, possibly. Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.